Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Paul Halme. Paul has used his business acumen to build his fitness business into one of the most successful gyms in the U.S. Paul, though a successful entrepreneur, was not satisfied, and this seen the former stockbroker utilizing his talents to help his clients create their own high six-figure offline businesses. To entrepreneurs, though, Paul is the secret weapon they don't want their competitors knowing about. This has resulted in his consulting company growing well into the seven figures by helping his clients attain their goals and aspirations. The biggest success he has achieved in living a freedom lifestyle of his own design. Paul works with highly committed people who have worked hard to build their businesses. And the most common results his clients attest to: more time for their family, more money, and more time to travel while having a successful plan to financial freedom. To date, Paul has become a 2 times best-selling author, an international speaker, and a sought-after mentor for people worldwide. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Paul. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thanks for having me, Dwight. I'm excited.
Yeah, so am I, brother. I was, reading up on you, and I went and looked at your book. Obviously, no time to read it at this time, but I went and read some of the synopsis stuff on Amazon. Brother, good for you, right? I never really read about the one in regards to, helping people with their martial arts studios, but obviously my focus is more on financial. This is my 20th year in the financial planning business. So, Paul, one of the things I focus on, and we just were talking about, is for me, my audience wants to connect to people. We're so tired of the superficial, and I want people to be able to know, like, and trust you. And in order for people to know, like, and trust you, I focus on a person's origin story from their earliest recollections. I would appreciate it, share as much as you want, as raw as you want, in regards to your earliest recollections that led you up to where you are today.
Man, it all starts, I grew up in a super small town in South Dakota before I moved to Texas, and lived there my whole life. Family, no one had any money. No one ever talked about money. So it wasn't a big thing. But I figured out at an early age, if I wanted things, I had to do things myself. So I would go, ask my parents if I could roll quarters or lose change at the house, save up to buy a bicycle, things like that. And I go into the bank and says, my name's Paul. They'll tell her she called me J. Paul. She's like, oh, you're like a young J. Paul Getty. And this is back before the internet. I'm like, who the hell is that? And then I have to ask my grandpa, and he explained to me. I'm like, oh, okay, I was a money guy. So I'm like, maybe I'm destined to kind of figure things out. And then fast forward, I go through college, end up moving to Texas, become a stockbroker. I'm 26 years old, no money to my name, and I'm talking to people with millions of dollars, and I'm like, they're just regular people. There's nothing special about 90% of them. They're just people that put $400 or $500 a month away for 40 years and they became multimillionaires. So I learned, like, man, it's not a super complicated game if you just stick to the fundamentals and do that. And I really wish I would have had someone to teach me that when I was, a teenager or in high school or even in college. No one teaches us any of this stuff.
Yeah, I like how you put that, you wish you had that. I say to people all the time, I look at my life from my, youth to where I am to now. Had I had me then, oh my gosh.
Oh,
right. We all think that, but in the reality, it's true. Just think of the effect and cause of life if we could actually go back in time and coach our younger selves.
Yeah, it's insane. to know the things, like that old cliche saying, if I knew then what I know now, it's like you can coach yourself so much farther. So that's one of my things is like with my kids and anybody I come in contact with, I'm always trying to talk about money, the stuff nobody wants to talk about, because what I found out through the world of jiu-jitsu, which has been my passion project in my business one, I get around more people with money. And then I got to become friends with them. I hear how they talk to their kids and their conversations. They're all about money. And I'm like, well, I thought this was like taboo. We're not supposed to talk about this. And like, you find out like rich people are successful, that they already talk about it with their kids. Their kids have a huge head start on the average person.
Oh yeah, the pattern behavior that society has instilled in us, and when we, our parents pass it on to us, or we pass it on to our kids, and or we interpret what they're trying to teach us in a specific way. Like I know my kids are all five of them financially, legit. Not really. They didn't always listen to me. Some of them have. But one of the things I did do was instill them with tools in their toolbox, and whether they decide to take that tool out and use it as adults, because they're all adults now, that's entirely up to them. And one of the biggest tools I find that people don't get educated about, and they should teach about it in the school system, and then parents can, obviously enforce that, is the difference between a need and a want. How
Yeah.
many people today don't know the difference?
Yeah, they're just like, I just want everything. And it's like, well, you gotta balance the two out, because this, and it's weird, it's getting worse too since 2020. Like everybody feels so entitled to things, and like, well, I don't have to work as hard. And I'm like, well, that was like a 2-year stay-at-home window. It's like that's not going to be the way the world works going forward. But we had that, which I think made things even worse with people when it comes to money.
Oh, absolutely. Like you talked about people being able to, your 26-year-old stockbroker working with people that are wealthy, but they started with a few $100s a month. Well, it's a mindset. They
Yep.
sit down, if they're coached properly, how to goal set and how to budget their inflows and outflows, and realize that, if you're bringing in a couple thousand a month, right? You learn to save 300-400 of it. You save a certain percentage, and then you budget and live on the difference. And that's how you attain success. Does that mean that you won't hit some hills and valleys, right, in your life where you need to not put money away? Hey, it happens. It's happened to me. But at the end of the day, when you instill in people the difference between a need and a want, and controlling their inflows and outflows, success short term into the long term haul is there for everybody. But is everybody going to be a millionaire? Well, that's unrealistic. It's not going to happen, right? It's just we don't have enough jobs where people can put away enough money to be, uber successful. But even at the people listening, even at the lowest level of your income, you could have still a high level of success. What do you want out of life? Not everybody wants to own a Lamborghini. I'm just being real, right?
Yeah.
So I help people stretch their vision and understand what they want, and then get to that point. And I know you utilize the same sort of idea where you want to, peel back the layers of the onion and help people understand that they can get what they need. They just got to start living a life on purpose and not by accident. Paul, I myself have gone from one industry, electronics engineering, into computer consulting, now into finance the last 20 years. Many doubting my sanity and why I would go from one lucrative space into something completely different more than once. What has the journey been like for you, going from being a stockbroker, still owning a successful gym, to being, well sought after consulting, helping others level up their own entrepreneurial journey?
It's been a wild one. It's probably something similar to yours, where it's like you get to a certain point, and I was a stockbroker and I had everything I thought I wanted. I had the good job, wife, 2 kids, dog, house, everything. And you get to that point and you're like, well, I guess I'm done. And it's like, now I just stick around for a 3% raise or whatever it is, or maybe a lateral promotion or something. You're just kind of like, is this really what I want? And then I think humans, once we hit goals, we're designed to like push even farther or push in a different direction. So when I got there, I started seeing my friends are entrepreneurs. I was like, man, they got a lot of freedom. That looks pretty cool. I'm really interested in this. And I started helping my buddies with their gyms. And I was like, man, I can really do this. And this is really fun. It's rewarding. It's just different. And then when I made that switch, that was a humongous switch, because it was, luckily I had a wife that was super supportive. She was like, hey, we're going to we could do this, because I was like, this is a big jump. It's like, I got good insurance, I got good salary, we're going to take this risk. And, but luckily it all worked out, and then to go from that to the consulting was actually a little bit easier, because I'd proven the model at the gym, like, hey, this is what I do, this is how I do it. That's why I wrote the first book, is people to understand, like, I knew what I was talking about. And then, consulting has been super rewarding, because it's just, to me, it's the funnest thing to take somebody that has an okay business or a struggling business and teach them how to have a successful, profitable business. And then they're like, hey, this is great. Now I have money. What am I going to do now? And this is like, I'm kind of in like the next evolution of my life, is helping them with their finances and understanding, how to read a profit and loss statement, which is terrifying. A lot of business owners don't know how to read it. It's like, this is a profit and loss statement. You're doing this. And like you said earlier, needs versus wants. I'm like, you have to be putting money away for retirement, because all these guys, a lot of entrepreneurs are like, well, I put all the money back in my business, and, maybe I'll sell that. Or I go, yeah, maybe you're going to sell it. Maybe you're not, but if you are building up a financial plan and you have money put away for retirement, then you have another option versus, being 60 something years old, stressed out because you're trying to sell a business you don't know if you can sell. And so the earlier they can start understanding needs versus wants and putting money away, it makes the biggest difference.
Oh, absolutely. And another thing that's complicated about the whole process, as you said, it was easy to go from being a stockbroker into consulting because you had a proven model. You had something, you weren't a poser. And nowadays I see it. I just, I was reading a post today by a good friend of mine who's, I've met him, been on my podcast. I'm going to see him here in November again, going to the US. And he talked about the confusion in the coaching and mentorship space, about how many people have these programs and courses, and they speak, but yet they have no basis of former knowledge. Really, they're not really thought leaders. They're a so-called expert, and they're out coaching others how to do things, yet they haven't really accomplished it. So you went from an accomplished space of having processes into the consulting space, and you were able to share the good, bad, and the ugly, right?
Yeah.
And that's what makes a great entrepreneur, a great consultant. You can consult people even if they're not an entrepreneur. It could be just somebody that's always on the hunt and climb in their career. There's nothing wrong. Again, people listening, don't ever think that I'm judging you or anybody's judging you for not being an entrepreneur.
No.
An entrepreneur gives you a higher level of freedom if you achieve, the right things and do the action, beliefs, consistency of life, the ABCs. But people in careers, I know people in careers that make more than some people in entrepreneurship. The biggest thing I find you can weigh in on this as an entrepreneur, though, financial freedom is great. The biggest thing I love is the time freedom.
Time freedom. Yeah. It's like, I joke around, like, being a stockbroker was the best job I ever had. And, if I wouldn't have fallen in love with running the gym, I probably would have stayed there and done that, because I still have friends that are still there, and they make a stupid amount of money. I mean, they make so much money because they've been there so long, but they don't have the time freedom that I do, the ability to do the things that I want to do. Yes, they have vacation, things like that. But on the other side of the coin, though, is I also work 7 days a week. And it's like, I take time off, but do I really take time off? Because I never stop thinking about my business. So it's harder for me to shut it off. So yeah, if you listen to this, you're not an entrepreneur. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. It's like, you can literally, I mean, even if especially if you're in a job with a good retirement program, I mean, you can be, I talk to people all the time that have so much money that were just at a good job. They made good money, but they put money away. They took advantage of all the matching, all these different things. And they retire with millions of dollars.
Yeah. And that's powerful. So, so many people think they can't make it when, outside the entrepreneurial space. Again, like you said, as an entrepreneur, we can be stuck working where we never disengage, but that's okay. People say to me, well, how long are you going to work for? I'm going to work till the day I die, till the day I take a last breath. How many hours I work as I continue to age, that's up to me. But if I'm enjoying the game of being an entrepreneur, because it is a game, and it doesn't mean that I don't think it's serious, but I'm out doing whatever it takes to help others, and I feed off that energy of their life change, their starting life change. Maybe they've never elevated and climbed. Maybe they're stuck, and I'm helping them climb past that rut, like you said, where people they're making tons of money, and they don't know where to go anymore. They stop climbing. I've seen people that are wealthy stop climbing and lose it all, because now all of a sudden they stop climbing and they just spend their money like there's no tomorrow, because they have no structure. They don't understand the rules of the money game. Their lives fall apart. And those listening thinking it doesn't happen, trust me, it happens. I've seen it happen. And the biggest thing is you just got to realize that being an entrepreneur in your career, are you truly enjoying what you do from the moment you get up till the moment you go to bed? And are you enjoying the journey? So what I mean by that, and you probably can attest to this, Paul, how many people, they just go, 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 go. They hit that goal. They don't celebrate. They go, 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 go. They hit the next goal. Go, 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 go. And along the way, I'll ask them, okay, what was it like from point A to point B till you hit that goal? What was the journey like? And they'll go, well, I never really thought about it. Well, that's a problem. If you're not thinking about what you achieved along the way, the joys, the sadness, the tripping, the Band-Aid on the knee or whatever, that's part of the journey. That's part of life. You can't have joy without strife. The list goes on. And that's one of the biggest problems I see with people that are trying to always accomplish. They're go, 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 and they don't enjoy the journey, which is enjoying time. Right. And they live a life of work, work, work. What's your take on that?
Yeah, and I was super guilty of that too on the way up, because I'd gone from being a broker to being an entrepreneur, and you don't have any money. And you start hitting these goals, and you're like, oh, cool, I hit this one. You hit the next one, and you're working a whole bunch, and you're kind of like starting to feel burned out. And then you're like, I really didn't celebrate any of those things. And then, unfortunately, I had a tragedy happen. My little sister, she passed away when she was 34 from complications from an aneurysm after having her second child. And at the time I was 37, and I was grinding, I was working a bunch. I'm like, oh, and then I was like, it hit me. It's like, man, tomorrow's not promised. It's like, I got to start doing more stuff. I got to start traveling more. I got to start doing more stuff with my family. So now we'll set goals. Like if I hit I'll set a goal. Like, hey, if we hit this, and this, then this bonus comes out. And then I'm a big fan of the 80-20 principle, Pareto's principle. It's like, if I get a bonus, something like that, I take 20%, and I'm like, we're just going to do whatever we want. You want to go to the mall and buy some stuff and have a nice dinner, cool, whatever. I'm still putting 80% of the money into another investment or into the business. But I learned that you have to take money and enjoy it. So we joke around. It's like, hey, when this bonus hits, 20% of that's going to be this much. What do you want to do? And then we'll be like, oh, let's go here. And my wife and my kids will go do stuff like that. And I'm a lot more about experiences than things now. Yes, I like nice things. I like nice cars, nice watches, nice stuff, but I would much rather take a nice vacation, something that the kids remember, my wife remembers, over some of the material things. But even if it's not a lot of money, just enjoy the experience, celebrate a little bit. It's like, because I talked to a lot of guys, because in my industry, a lot of guys want to be in the UFC, or they want to be champions. And I've had a lot of friends do it. When they get there, they all say the same thing. Like, man, I wish I would have enjoyed it more. It was over before. It was there and then it was gone. And it's like, I remember going to UFCs and meeting Dana White and Chuck Liddell and all the stuff, and it was like, and the whole time you're there, you're like, oh, I'm working, I'm helping, I'm grinding. And you're like, I really should have enjoyed that a lot more,
Yeah.
So it's like, you look back at it and you're like, man.
I get that 100%. It's, and then there's the opposite coin where people celebrate too long. Right.
Yeah.
But
Can't do that.
I remember, making my first 6 figures, and I looked back at it, and I never enjoyed any of the journey. I couldn't sit back, and I had somebody ask me here, I was on a show as a guest, and they said, what was it like making your first 100 grand? And I never even hesitated. It says, I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? All of a sudden I'm making over $100,000 a year, and I just was go, 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 that I didn't really put any thought process into the journey of it and what it was like and the feelings I was feeling. And, and even if I did at the time, I buried it because I just was so driven to succeed that I never give myself the solace or the time just to go, oh man, this is a struggle. Oh, today's awesome. Oh, okay. We're halfway to where I want to go. Let's go out for a nice meal. Let's go out and do this. Let's take the night off. It was always 7 days a week, hard as fast as I could go. And, if I could go back, I would change a lot of things, but not a lot. And here's why. People listening, I wouldn't change a lot. I wouldn't be who I am today if I erased the past, right? Even my strife and trials and tribulations as a child, all the way up to where I am, to my first business, to my second business, to where I am to now, I wouldn't be who I am today. I just wish I would have enjoyed a little bit more of it, right? So yeah, so it's we're from the same school, but bottom line, we have that knowledge to help others collapse the time frames and ensure they enjoy things more, than we did. Not that we're not enjoying our lives now, it's just
No,
we could
that's
have did
great.
it could have been yeah, exactly. So, Paul, you have achieved living a freedom lifestyle you designed using goal setting and helping your clients attain more time for their family, more money, and more time to travel while having a successful plan to financial freedom. In order to be financially free, both mentally and in one's bank account, why is goal setting so important to people?
Man, goal setting is the key to everything. It's one of the keys, I should say, is you have to have goals. You got to know where you're going. I love flying and everything like that. I've never gotten on a plane where the pilot's like, "Hey, we're gonna go to New York. We're just gonna head northeast from Dallas." They're up there doing their pre-flight checklist. They're going through all these different variables. They know which degree the plane's got to go. And people will go through life, and I'm like, what's your destination? They're like, "Oh, I'll retire." I'm like, well, what's your goal? And they're like, retire. And I'm like, okay, we got to work on this a little more. So I set up I call them like micro goals, then long-term goals, like, having like these little micro goals that are more like habits of like, hey, I have to put money away automatically into different accounts. I have to be investing every week or every month into the markets. I have to be putting money to work. I can't let it sit dormant. I've got to be working on debt if I have that. And then you get these little goals and they become bigger goals, and everything compounds on top of each other. And then one day you wake up and you're like, wow, we actually did it. We hit these goals. And then, like you said, it's like, I'll never finish. I'll probably work till the day I die, but doing stuff, but I'm always going to keep adjusting my goals, keep making different plans, because that goes back to my jiu-jitsu background too. Like if you're not training for anything, it's kind of like, yeah, I'm training to train and whatever. And that's when I make the least progress. Then if you're training for something like, hey, we're training for the world championships, obviously that's a whole nother animal. And you have to have like super specific goals, or you're just like, I have guys that come into my gym all the time. They're 40 years old and they're like, man, I'm 30 pounds overweight. I've lost that edge. I just don't feel like myself anymore. I'm getting depressed, and it's like, okay, cool. Let's make a goal to lose 15 pounds, in the next 6 weeks. And then we're going to look at, doing this many classes and doing this. And you see people come back to life just by having something to like focus on. Because if you watch the news and the day-to-day grind, life can get super depressing. But if you put positive goals, things where you're like, hey, if I get to this is going to change my life. And then you see that in people, and it just makes you so excited as like a coach, either a jiu-jitsu coach or a finance coach. It's the same thing to me.
Yeah, there's so many similarities.
It's
Helping people level up in life. And you know I look at all the struggle and strife that people go through, and you talk about people coming in. So whether it's jiu-jitsu, it's going to the gym, or it's finance, people hit a plateau, and I talk about this all the time. They climb onto the hamster wheel of life at a very young age, and they don't know how to get off of it. And they go to work, go home, get paid mentality, Monday to Friday. They live for the weekends. They live for that couple week vacation. And honestly, those listening, if you're there and you want to change, because you wouldn't be listening to my podcast if you didn't give a heck and want to change your life, it's never too late. It's never too late at any age to continue. And recently in the last 5 years, I had a tragedy happen in my life, and I climbed onto the hamster wheel. In my mental mindset, I camped and I wasn't climbing, and I was, gaining some unhealthy weight. I wasn't feeling the best about myself. And I had to have a gut check that happened because of my mentors, people that cared about me, saying, what are you doing? That's not who you are. People are watching you. You're not setting a good example to your family. And, people were, not harsh, but they were giving me that mental slap. So it's, you talked about what's your goal, and when they say I just want to retire, I hear that
yeah.
20 years all the time.
It's
Well,
like,
what do you want?
yeah,
Well,
narrow it down.
I don't know. Well, let's talk about it then. Or well, I'm never going to be able to retire. I'm in so much debt. What caused you to get there? What was your mental state of mind from when you were younger or from when you started getting in debt to where you are now? What's got, like, I challenge people to think, and I know you're the same way. So that's one of the things I also wanted to ask you. What are some of the initial steps in your process to help people start and eventually achieve their financial mental relief that everyone deserves?
Yeah. The biggest one, like I said, assessing the situation. Where are you at? Like, if somebody comes into my gym and they're 40 pounds overweight and they're on a bunch of different pills and medicine and everything, and it's like, you got here because of choices you made. So let's look at where you're at and how we can fix it. Same with your finances. People come in, they're like, man, I've got this business and I don't have any money because I've been putting all my money in my business. I'm like, all right, cool. Well, at least we know where you're at and why you're there. Now let's work to improve this. And once you assess where you're at, and I think it goes back to human mentality of like, we try to avoid things a lot of times. Like we don't want to talk. That's why like a lot of couples have problems with money. A lot of people have problems with money because they don't want to talk about it. Like, if I don't talk about it, it's going to get better. It's like, no, it's going to get worse. And your wife's going to get really, really mad at you when she figures out what you did. So I tell people, it's like, man, just figure out where you're at. This is where I'm at. This is where I want to go. And like you said earlier, don't just be like, well, I'd like to retire in 20 years. It's like, no, what do you want? Do you want to have maybe you are in a bad situation. You're like, man, I really screwed up bad. It's like, you don't have to, you could part-time retire, because you could work a part-time job, still have your retirement, still do other stuff. There's so many different levels of retirement. Like for me, a perfect retirement is I might be older, but I'm still probably going to be doing jujitsu. I'll probably still be doing some consulting. I'll definitely be doing some investing, because if I stop, I don't want to be like these people in their 70s that look like they're going to fall over and die at any second. It's like, I want to stay active. I want to be traveling. I want to be doing things. And when you get them to like paint the picture of what a retirement is to them, then they can tie the two together, because you and I have a different version of what retirement's going to be. So does my friends, but it's like anybody can build something they want. It goes back like that. You've probably heard the old story, like the Mexican fisherman, where he's like, the investment banker sees him fishing. He's like, oh man, if we did all this, we could build this thing up next 10 years, go public, have all this money, blah, blah, and do all this. And he's like, well, then what would I do? And he's like, well, then you could retire, fish in the morning and hang out with your wife and kids. And he's like, I do that right now. So it's like, you can design anything you want. And a lot of times we get caught up in like, well, no, I have to have this perfect retirement where I have to have $2 million in a retirement account and I'm drawing out, 5% withdrawal rate. So I'm drawing out $100,000 a year. And if I don't do that, I'm a failure. It's like, are you a failure? Or could you have a different retirement where maybe you're working part-time because you really enjoy it? It's like anybody can design it, but if you don't take the time to look at where you're at and where you want to go, you're just going to be, like you said, on a hamster wheel, just going nowhere, basically.
Well, yeah, everybody's definition of success is differently. I know my definition of success in my 20s, 30s, 40s, and out of my 50s is completely different. And that's why when people ask me how long are you going to work for till the day I take my last breath, whoa, you got to enjoy life. Hey, you're making an assumption I'm not enjoying life. Yeah. I enjoy life. So when I'm helping out a client, I'm coaching somebody, I'm doing my podcast, and I'm getting to communicate with, exceptional human beings like you. That's joy for me.
Yeah,
I am enjoying life. Yes, it's work, but you can have enjoyable work. And then, like you said, then are you semi-retired? You're going to do a little bit of jujitsu. You're going to do a little bit of consulting. You're still controlling your time. So, I have clients that are nomads, digital nomads. They work all over the freaking world. One of my friends moved a few months ago from BC here at a place called Kelowna, moved to Costa Rica, because he can run his firm all digitally. He controls his own time. He works a few hours in the morning, or he decides he's going to book it in the afternoon. He controls his calendar. I control my calendar. Paul controls his calendar. If Paul decides he wants to work the next 3 days, like Paul's to the wall, pedal to the metal, and put in, 15, 18-hour days for the next 3 days, guess what? It's his decision. It's his choice. I guarantee if he does do that, it's because he's enjoying the journey. Doesn't mean that there's not going to be some hiccups in those 3 days, but then the next 3 weeks he could take off. Like, people are going like, when you raised your kids as a single dad? I took off every summer. What do you mean you took off every summer? I always knew that I was going to take the summer off to be with them, because I didn't have a father that did that. And nothing against my dad, very successful entrepreneur, but he owned a farm equipment dealership. He can't take the summer off.
No, he's grinding.
He's grinding from spring until the snow flies, right? So, and I didn't want that for my kids. And initially, I was a workaholic. I just took off the bare minimum time, and then I don't know, it was probably at least probably 18, 19 years ago when I got into finance and left the consulting game of computers, that I literally spent every summer with my kids, right up to them adults all, leaving the flock. And people were going, oh, that must have been nice, right? Oh, you're so lucky. Yeah. That's another thing. Luck,
Yeah.
the term luck. Yeah. Luck is preparation and opportunity. Come on. Right. Like, I don't know if you've ever heard this saying before. My listeners have. I brought up on a few episodes, but I heard a guy on the stage back in the early 90s in Salt Lake City at a conference, and he said very quietly, he got out the whole, there was 20,000 people at this event. And he goes, luck is a loser's excuse for a winner's completion. And he paused and he said, did you hear me? He leaned forward. He said, and it's on these big screens. He says, luck is a loser's excuse for a winner's completion. Don't be that person. Luck is created by the things that you're going to do and the people you associate and surround yourself with, and the corrective actions you take when you hit a brick wall. There's no such thing as failure. There's such thing as a stepping stone to the next level of you aspiring to be successful or continue your success or whatever. So anyway, right. So that's still one of my favorite sayings today. It irritates people. Oh, well,
That's
right.
true. Yeah. You get lucky when you work hard. It's like,
Yeah. Oh, you're so lucky. Look what you've accomplished. Yeah. It's only taken me 20 years, 10
takes
years,
20
15
years
years,
overnight.
whatever. Yeah. I'm an overnight success. But people are so narrow minded. It's not because they're bad people. It's their pattern taught by a society, and a society that needs a giant wake up call. And as you mentioned prior in our conversation, look what's happened with the pandemic. People not wanting to work as hard. There's a huge shortage of staff in Canada and in the US, because I talked to my US friends. It's like, where the hell did all these people go and how are they surviving? Right?
I don't know
Like,
how they're surviving. It's insane.
it's insane. People don't want to work. Like when I was like I mentioned to you, I was in Columbus from Thursday till Sunday night, and the struggle at these restaurants. So we were talking to people, and at that hotel, the service was atrocious at a Sheraton. And normally, it would be great, but they don't have the staff.
Yeah.
People don't want to work. I don't understand it. But anyway, we'll continue on from there. But, I like as well where you said that, couples money issues, the lack of communication. I have seen that time and time again, because we grow up as little kids told, you're better to be seen, not heard, or hush, hush, don't talk about money around your kids. I used to say to my kids, here, look at the budget. You want this. Oh, by the way, what you want, is that a need or a want? And I get to a point where they'd automatically stop asking me because they knew it was a want, not a need. I'm serious.
That's great.
Or I'd say to them, okay, tough month. I'm raising 5 and you want on my own income. It's kind of been a shock. I can't work the hours I used to work. So in the first few years of having them full time, as opposed to just joint custody, I'd look at them and say, see that month we're going to be unfortunately, because of all the expenses, it's going to be a negative. So what you're asking me for is if you can talk to me that it is a need, I'll figure out something in here, or we'll figure it out where I have to use credit to do it because it is a need. And then I'll compensate to get rid of that cost in the next months where we don't have all those needs. And that's how I tried to teach them about budgeting, same things I use with my clients. But lack of communication and hiding things from your family, your wife or your husband, is not the way to live life.
No.
It's one of their biggest reasons why I believe, I don't know what it is in specifically, but in North America, I believe it's right now, it's like 2 to 3 out of 5 marriages fail. Like that's because of financial strife.
Yeah, and a lot of it can be avoided with communication. And I tell people, it's like, I'm not perfect. I screw up all the time. I do dumb things. I do dumb investments. Sometimes I get over ambitious, but my wife, we communicate about everything. So sometimes she'll be like, no, that's a horrible idea. And I'm like, oh, when do you do this? Like I panicked when the pandemic happened, I'm like, I'm a non-essential business. I was like, okay, let's get like some kind of sandwich shop franchise. Let's open one of those because they won't shut those down, blah blah. And then my wife's like, well, what are you gonna do when somebody calls in sick and you gotta go make sandwiches for 8 hours? And I was like, oh, you're right. We gotta find something else. But the old Paul would have gone all in and like started buying a franchise and all that stuff. Then to try to explain to her how I screwed up, and then she's mad at me because I didn't listen. And so it's good to have communication because she'll catch me sometimes where I'm being a little bit too aggressive. And it's like like last year I got a little cocky with NFTs and some crypto stuff, and she's like, yeah, maybe you should back off a little bit. And I'm like, no, I know everything. And then I'm like, huh, yeah, you were right. I got murdered.
and that's okay, and it's good you have that communication. And you brought up crypto and NFTs. It's no different than stocks. I always tell people have a specific portion of your net worth if you're that type of person that wants to play in pure stocks, and in NFTs or crypto. Know your number of what you're willing to sacrifice of your net worth, and do not play outside of the sandbox. Stay in that and do not cross that line. And if you can have stick-to-itiveness long term, a lot of that stuff's gonna always win. You're always gonna win the money game. And even if it doesn't, you haven't lost your shorts. You haven't caused financial strife in your family or tension between your significant other or even between your 6 inches between your ears, right? So
yeah, it's tough because you get that FOMO going, and it's like everybody's like, "Oh my God, Bitcoin's at 65,000. It's going to go to 1 million. I got to buy now." And then they all were taking out loans and using credit cards, and I'm like, "No, don't. You can't do that now that Bitcoin's whatever it is was 18 or 20,000. Now people are like, "Oh, I'd never buy it. It's crashed." I'm like, "But you wanted to buy it when it was like incredibly expensive." And like you said, have that number where it's like, like I dabbled a little bit in crypto and even less in NFTs because it was fun. I'm like, oh my God, this is cool. If this works, this is going to be amazing. But at the same time, like if all my NFTs were to go to zero, it's like, it's not going to change my life. It's going to annoy me a little bit. Like, wow, but I never put enough money into something that risky that is going to hurt me or my family. It's like, oh, that sucks.
well, that's exactly it. Like I've invested in some companies that are well, not necessarily startups, but some people would consider them startups. And I knew what I was willing to take of my net worth and invest in it because it was a long-term play, right?
Yep.
And it's based on a physical, tangible asset of a company, the stock I bought. Whereas, and again, I'm not against crypto, but I like the tangible stock still tied to something. I still feel more confident and comfortable in that, or in some some really good mutual funds. Even there's some great funds out there where I know the fund managers, and they literally, they're taking the worry away from me. They're the ones that got the long-term outlook for me, and I trust them. So I might put some money in that, but it's about diversification in life. Don't have all your eggs in one basket. People, you've heard that lots. It's true.
Oh, yeah.
It's so true.
It's
You want to
true.
be truly successful, you have to look at the grand scheme of things long term, and where are my streams of cash going to come from in the future. Maybe it can be near term future, maybe it can be long term future. And with that, I'm going to gravitate into my next question that I'm really looking forward to talking to you about is, Paul, many do not understand what passive income is, let alone understand if it's actually attainable in their life. Can you please explain what passive income is to my listeners, and why everyone should, especially in today's day and age, be implementing processes to have passive income?
And it's funny because passive income has gotten the worst, name reputation the last year or two with all like a lot of the crypto stuff that was out there. People are like, oh, if you put this money in here, you'll get 25% forever for the whatever. And it was kind of like, I don't know about that. We saw a lot of those things melt down, stable coins, things like that. But when you look at real passive income it's the thing that's going to allow you to retire or semi-retire when you get older. And there's so many ways to create it. Like you said, you can build a solid portfolio of stocks, mutual funds, things like that, very, very diversified. And then say you become, 65 years old, you go into a Fidelity, Schwab, TD Ameritrade, Vanguard, those companies, and you're like, hey, I'm this old, I have this much money, make me an income plan. And they're like, okay, cool, you're going to get X%, and they would literally give you a number you're going to get for the rest of your life, barring the whole world evaporating. So that's one level. That's like the super simple one that everybody knows about. The one that I'm really passionate about is as you go through phases, and it all goes back to you have to start. But once you start investing and you cover these basics, you have your retirement accounts covered, your emergency accounts, your brokerage accounts, health savings accounts, whatever they are. Then you start like amassing money. And like you said before, like you bought into things that are a newer type company, things like that. And in the US, a lot of times I didn't really realize a lot of this until the pandemic, but there's so many different private equity deals that people can get into where it's like you find these up and coming franchises with like, hey, we're opening up these 10, hot chicken places and we're going to, pool all this money together. And then you own X% of the business and you don't have any say in it. And I'm like, wait a second, that sounds amazing. Because anybody that's a business owner knows you put your money into a business, then you get to work, and then you got to do all the things where when you start investing in other actual companies, I joke around like it's like almost like a mini Shark Tank, where you're getting to actually put your money into things. And the first meeting I went to, I'll never forget it. It changed my whole mind about this because I'm like, oh, and they're like, you have to be an accredited investor, do these things, and then once you give us the money, don't bother us. It's like if you bother us, we're going to send you the money back because it's like we don't want to hear from you. And I'm like, wait a second. So if you don't want to hear from me, that means I have no responsibilities. And then I just get my distribution checks every quarter. I'm like, this sounds amazing. And then so now I'm seeing it come into life. And then I tell people because they always want to skip. I used to call them like the 3 steps. They always want to skip, getting started and accumulating money. And they just want to jump into like buying stuff. And I'm like, well, no, get everything done first and then start buying things. Because even in my head, I was like, this is going to be a year long, at least a 12-month process to these things start doing any kind of cash flow. And then, of course, with the supply chain issues and all that stuff, now a year's turned into 18 to 24 months. So if I would have taken money that we needed, I'd be in a whole bunch of trouble with my wife right now. Because I was like,
maybe in a doghouse or building
like,
yourself one.
Like we're going to be getting checks in like 9 months to a year. Now I'm like, it's going to be like 18 to 24 months, but I'm like you said, I'm playing the long game with those. Those are a long-term thing where it's like, they're going to, as these companies grow and it's companies I've watched from like, okay, I actually believe this has a good company. It has good management, good people behind it. I'm like, this is going to be really good. And then you start getting that passive income flow. And then some people are like, well, I don't want to do that. I want to be in real estate. Well, no one teaches us these things. There's real estate syndications. You don't have to be a landlord. You don't have to be the person going in and doing things. You can go find different real estate syndications that do the same thing that pay out based on how the funds do. And then, so when you start getting to these next levels, you start seeing these things where it's like, man, I can play a little bit in the real estate game. I can play a little bit in private equity and all these things. And I don't have to be the one grinding and, making sure that the marketing's getting done and someone's opening the door and the things are done with that. So to me, that's like the ultimate thing people need to think about. But the hardest part, and I get this all the time, like, I just want to skip ahead to that. It's like, I have to tell them, no, slow down. Every game, Michael Jordan started with chest passes. He didn't go out there and start just doing 360 dunks from, the free throw line. It's like, you have to have the solid fundamentals, creating winning habits, because we've all seen it before. The guys that win the lottery or the professional athlete that gets a humongous check and then 2 years later, they're broke because they didn't have the fundamentals. So I tell people, build your fundamentals, but then start looking out there because as things have changed so much, crypto, love it or hate it. Some people are like, oh, I hate crypto. I love it. It changed a lot of things. Robinhood changed a lot of things, as far as investing goes, because they've got all these big companies to cut all their fees, have fractional shares where, before Amazon was $4,000 a share before it split. Now with fractional shares, you can say, I just want to buy $20 Amazon a week or $20 of Apple or whatever. So there's so many more opportunities. And the thing is, as the world evolves, we're going to have more and more opportunities. There's going to be more and more funds that are going to come out. There's going to be different real estate syndications. There's so many amazing opportunities out there.
So and that's exciting what you bring up, and it's what Paul's talk about is so true. The sad thing is though, is we're looking at a very small segment of the population that'll ever be able to play in that game.
Yep.
And that hurts my heart, to be honest with you. It really does. It hurts my heart. But my whole goal in life, and it has been for the last 20 years, is one person at a time, helping them learn how to live life on purpose, not by accidents. Maybe they can do that $20 into Amazon or that $100 or look at buying, some penny stocks into a company that's evolving and growing, and, just giving them options and choices they never realized that they actually have.
Yeah, no one teaches us these things.
Nothing. And we could go on and on about the problem that stems from the governments and how they control our education systems and the poor pattern teaching of how to teach people how to to develop, how to grasp from a young age, personal development, understanding financial development, understanding just the rules of life, instead of just letting people get out of school, climb on the hamster wheel. Let's go. Let's go. Okay. Oh, we're 65. We don't have enough. Okay. Now we want socialism and we want to be taken care of.
Yeah, it's scary because people are led down that path of like, you know what, it's not fair. Rich people suck, everything, blah, blah. And it's like you get to
They
meet.
don't suck.
They don't suck. They're great and they'll help you. It's like I had no idea until I got around people that had money. It's like I grew up with my parents always say stuff like that. And then I got around people with money and I'm like, people are really cool and they give a lot of money to charity and they do fundraisers. Like my family didn't do any fundraisers. We didn't do any charity. It's like, you see the positive side of money and it's like, but of course the media and everything, the government's like, no, it's evil. We'll take care of you. And it's like you said earlier, it's unfortunate. Like there's so many, they literally have rules. Like what I was talking about, you can't do certain investments unless that you're considered an accredited investor in the US. That's because the government makes it that way. But then they'll let you invest in other stuff that makes no sense, where they almost like keep you away from it. But getting educated, like you said, the majority of people can't do a lot of these things. But if you start now and start accumulating assets, then, 20, 30 years from now, your life can be just a complete 180 of where it's at right now.
Yeah. And, again, it's, what does a person do in order to eliminate society's limiting money beliefs? Associations, shut off the news, quit reading stupid ass shit, watching stupid ass movies that sensationalize a reality that doesn't exist, quit living in other people's successes, create your own. Like there's so many different things that we could do to help people eliminate their limiting money beliefs. But the number one thing that's lacking is they're not willing.
Yep.
They have to be willing. They're sitting on that tack, but that pinprick of that tack isn't enough to make them jump up and start walking, taking baby steps or running. And, I don't know what the solution is to helping people eliminate their limiting money beliefs. What would you think?
Man, just start talking about money. Just literally start talking about, like, do the thing that you were told not to do. And, it's taboo. It's like talking about money. And this is going to sound kind of harsh, but if you have friends that get annoyed at that and they get irritated, then maybe you don't hang out with them as much.
Associations.
It's like,
Bye-bye.
Association. If I had, and this is the worst thing, and it goes back to what your parents said when you're probably a kid, it's like, if you hang out with those kids, you're going to be a loser too. And it's like, well, if you have 4 friends and they're all broke as hell, you're the 5th broke person. I hate to be the one to tell you. So one of the things that's helped me a ton, like I came from no money. My first day as a stockbroker, I had $0, couldn't wait to put money in my 401k. But as I've kind of leveled up each time, is I try to get around people that are doing better than me. And it's like, they want to help you. They want to see success. They, like you said, think they have like mindset. When I get around my friends that are successful, they're not bitching about, even the president or whoever, or the queen died, now there's a king. They're like, I don't know. It's
Who
like,
gives a shit? Honestly.
Yeah. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this deal. Oh, I got this building under contract. I'm like, oh man, how'd you? And then like, I never ask people, I never try to pick their brain, but I always talk to them and like congratulate them. I'll be like, oh my God, you got that building under contract. That's so cool. How'd you do that? And they're like, oh, I did this. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Congratulations. And then they'll literally tell you how they did it without you being like, hey, can I pick your brain real quick? And then they just shut down like, oh God, don't talk to me. It's like, but people will talk to you about money if you start talking about it, and you'll weed out the ones that don't want to. And then you start associating with people and you level up and you level up and you level up. And like you and I had said before we had gotten on, is you'd been in an event. If you could find good events to go to, that's one thing that sucked the most about the pandemic. I couldn't go to events. I couldn't be around people that were successful. I had to like go on Zoom or call people. But when you go to events, like, marketing, sales, finance, whatever, find the people that are fun to talk to, that are doing big things, and you'll like start to associate them. And that's one thing I hate. I love and hate social media at the same time. But like, I love Instagram because Instagram's like, I call it like a cheat code. If somebody's doing really good in my industry or my niche or a niche I want to get into, I start following them. I start supporting them. If they do something cool, I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. If they sell something, I buy their book and I'm like, man, I got your book. It was great. And then literally you go to these events and you're running them and they'll remember you. Like, oh, hey, you're that. Oh, we're friends on Instagram. Yeah. Blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, this stuff actually works. Cause I never come from a taking position of like, oh, I'm going to take all the knowledge that I can get from Dwight on this podcast. It's like, no, I want to be like, oh, this is cool. You're doing all these things. And then because successful people we're all egomaniacs a little bit. We like getting a pat on the back. Like if somebody said to me, like, oh man, I can't believe you did that vacation villas in Florida. I'm like, oh yeah, cool. How'd you know about that? Like, oh, I saw your story. That's really cool. How'd you get into that? And I'm like, well, honestly, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just met some guys at an event that were really good investors that I knew and I trusted. And they're like, hey, we're doing this deal. And I'm like, I want to do that too. So it's like, at the same
it's a time investment, right? Like you talk about Instagram and commenting, and a lot of my successful people say the same thing, and I should do more of it. But the more you engage, the more people, you compliment or you reference things about them. They want to know, they want accolades. Like you said, we all have a bit of an ego. We want to be able to, but that's not bad. Everybody thinks ego is bad. That's not true. Unfortunately, there's a lot of bad ego out there, and it stems from our governments. But anyway, we won't go there.
That could be a whole day podcast.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I personally believe that, like you were saying, you gotta not be in the position of take. You want to give. When you're talking to somebody and they say they're successful, have a conversation so they have the ability to share their win, because that sharing their win increases and elevates their energy level.
Oh,
and you can feed off that energy level. And if they see that you're genuine and you're not just trying to be a leech and suck off of them, you never know where it can go.
Yeah, I've made some crazy relationships like that. And it's like, and I purposely tell myself, it's like, I don't want to take anything from anybody, but I love to, people are like, well, I can't give anything out. I don't know. You can give compliments. You can give congratulations. People love that kind of stuff. And then
you can give a smile and a genuine compliment.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. And then you start learning from these people, and then you start following them, and you'll start seeing, and it's a crazy thing. We were talking about this in one of our mastermind meetings. Like you see these trends of like the people that, when they're successful, they're all doing the similar habits. And you're like, if you start watching their life and you watch their stories, you're like, they all do the same thing. They're all older, but they're still working out. They're trying to take care of themselves. They're trying to be positive. They're trying to help people. They're trying to build better teams so their team makes more money and they make more money. But you start looking at it and you're like, hey, wait a second. These 4 guys are all doing the same thing, and they're all stupid successful. Maybe I should add some of these habits into my life. And the blueprint's right there for us to take.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. It's just a matter of being observant and then realizing I want to be one of the willing. I want to change my life. I'm going to take some action. My belief isn't there yet, but I can steal the belief of others, right? And seeing that they're successful and take the actions to increase my, believability, surround myself with good people. Like you said, you're not focusing on what's going on in politics or focusing what's going on with the queen. Now we have a king. You know what? People that are listening, if that's your life and you live for the news media and you live for all the negativity or what's going on, what this celebrity's done or whatever, I'm not saying you can't enjoy some of it, but there's a difference between being caught up in it and enjoying it. Right. And having a little bit in your life and smiling because you like this actor or singer, or you like this, if you're a royal lover, then good for you. I could care less. Right. I don't elevate people that have been bullies for centuries into the status where they are today. I don't elevate that. That's just who I am. And we're a Commonwealth country, and they're giving her the day of her. If you haven't heard in the news, our prime minister, who's an asshat, is making it an official holiday, and it's costing us however millions of dollars. Are you kidding me?
Not like you got bills to pay and people to take care of.
My gosh, we got people starving in the streets. We got poverty. We got this and that, and we're doing stupid ass stuff like that to hold up a monarchy that subjugated and hurt people across the world for generations. Yeah. And again, I'm not against the UK. I'm not against any of that stuff. What I'm against is the fact of people elevating and putting people on a soapbox that don't deserve it. They're human beings. They just their ancestors just happen to be bullies.
They got born in the right line.
You know what I mean? They happen to be bullies, and there's going to be some people listening to that won't like what I have to say. I apologize, but I don't apologize. It's how I feel. That's who I
Yeah.
am. We can agree to disagree, or not. All right. So, Paul, you're an author of 2 books, one of them being The Money Fight. Take down your money problems, slam your self-doubt, and fight your way to financial freedom. Can you give the listeners an idea what they can expect to learn and be able to apply after reading your book?
Yeah, that book is, I'm really proud of that book because when I started writing it, it had to be edited down probably 12 times because it's hard to talk. And you know, this part too, you start talking in financial terms, people just tune you out. They're like, whoa, diversification, asset allocation, all this stuff. So I had to go through and edit it down to a readable level where the average person could go in and be like, hey, if I change these 3 to 5 habits, my whole life changes. That's why in the title I talk about that. It's like fighting your way to financial freedom because no one's going to give you financial freedom. It's like you're going to have to fight for it. You're going to have to make decisions. Is it a need? Is it a want? Do I have my automatic investment set up? Am I planning for this? Am I meeting with somebody once a year to look at my account and be like, hey, am I too aggressive? Am I too conservative for my age? People think they have to have a gazillion dollars to do that. You don't. You just have to have an account at a brokerage firm and they'll help you. Just having the basic things like that because you're going to have to fight for it. No one's going to give it to you unless you got like a really, really rich uncle that thinks you're cool and they're going to leave you some money, but I'm not banking on that. You know, it's like, so to me, it's just like MMA or jiu-jitsu. It's a fight. I have to do these things to get to the end result. And it goes way back to when you were talking earlier about goal setting and planning. It's just like a fight camp, but instead of being 6 weeks, it's 30 to 40 years. Like, hey, I want to get to this point. And when people read the book, it talks about different things of how you can set things up, what you can do with that. But the main thing that drives people home is you have to create winning habits and just take action every day. And your life, you'll get there. I mean, yeah, you might not have $5 million, but you might have $1 million or $500,000 or whatever that number is, to pay how much money you put away for how long. But statistically, historically, you can look at the markets. People are like, oh, the stock market's too dangerous. I'm like, look, you look at a graph, the S&P 500 since its inception. Yeah, there's been some really bad days, but over the course of the entire time it's gone, it's returned. I want to say it's like 11.2% or something. Which, if you can get that return for 30 or 40 years, you're talking about insane amounts of money you can create that you never would have had before.
Yeah, you just got to people get too caught up in the politics of what's going on in the world and what
Yeah.
and the noise. They don't know how to rise above the noise, so they pull out of the markets. They come back. They sell high. Pardon me. They buy high and sell low. They just
All the time.
it's the investment behavior and things I've experienced. Now 20 years into it, and shut out the noise, change your associations, find somebody that's going to help you peel back the layers of the onion and put a plan in place. And then, as you said, you need to check in. Some initially you might have to check in every week, every day, who knows, right? But find somebody that's going to help you level up and rise above the noise and the garbage that's going on in our world. And it's not just the pandemic. This has been going on as long as I've been alive and even prior to that, right? So people just need to understand it's never too late, right, to give a heck about your life, to live a life on purpose, not by accident. And so thank you for sharing about that, about your book. It can be found on Amazon. How do I know that? I looked it up. So
Easiest place to go.
yeah, you can go get you have the paperback and Kindle, I believe.
Yep. Yeah, the Kindle's super cheap. Yep.
Yeah, so I highly recommend you check that out. I'll make sure that we'll put that in the listeners' note in the show notes too. So, Paul, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
The biggest thing is you can't give up. You have to have that mindset. The biggest thing you can do is change your mindset. Like right now, I talk to people all the time. They're like, well, it's easy for you to say I didn't start 20 years ago. I'm like, well, yeah, you didn't. But the best time to start, is either 20 years ago or start now. Just start now. Stop complaining. Stop worrying about it. Be like, you know what? Yeah, I wasted 20 years and didn't invest, but that's cool because I'm starting today and I care about my future. I care about what I want. And then just start looking forward. Stop looking back about the what ifs or coulda, shoulda, wouldas. Just pick somewhere you want to go and then make a plan to invest to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, bottom line, like you said, start right now. It's never too late to start. maybe you won't get where you want to get if you had started 20 years prior, but sitting and wallowing in self-pity and going, oh, I can't achieve any of that. It's literally you're self-sabotaging yourself. If you realize that you didn't do the right things and now you're realizing you could have done something, start, like you said, start right now. Reach out to somebody, reach out to Paul, reach out to myself, get some coaching, because it's never too late to move forward in life and get off that hamster wheel and stop living a life of a pity party.
100%.
Right. So our time's almost up, and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way to reach you?
Best way, you can go to my website, paulhalme.com. Update my blogs pretty frequently with different things I'm doing and stuff like that. And as far as social media goes, Instagram.com/PAUL HALME. I love Instagram. It's my favorite social media, minus the fake accounts that try to scam crypto. So I'm never going to ask you to send me crypto. It's a fake account. So just stick to the main one that says, I'll never ask you to send crypto in the bio. But I just love Instagram. It's like, I can meet people all around the world. I can develop relationships with people that are way out of my league. And eventually I work my way up and I get into their league and become friends. So yeah, I love Instagram. So definitely follow me on Instagram.
Sweet. I'll make sure that's all in the show notes. Listeners, you can find that at giveaheck.com. Go into the podcast portal and click on right below Paul. You'll find the basic show notes, which will have the links. So you can go to his website, check out his Instagram. I appreciate you being on, brother. This has been a fantastic conversation.
I had a great time. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much for being on GiveAheck, Paul. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.